I think I've done everything that I wanted to do today. Now I'll just answer questions for the rest of. Are there any more questions?
It's always questions.
No, there can't be more questions. I've written so much on answering questions.
There are a lot of questions. Give me just a moment. I have to pull them
list is popping up here. I think that we go through them a bit. Liz, if you were paying attention, maybe you can pull ones that don't appear to have been answered.
There was a lot going on in the background, so I was not able to pay
answered.
attention as I would have liked to. I apologize.
It's got to be heard.
If you have answered it, please tell me and I will go to the next one.
Does relief apply to estimated tax penalties assessed during the freeze period?
I believe that it does. Right? If it's anything that's based on a failure to pay, estimated tax penalty should be in the Kwong Abdo relief.
Next question. You'll probably get to it later. Or later has come. Wondering if this reopens at least second year of ERC for refund and payment. All right, we're not even going to answer that one. Next.
Not even going to touch it.
Nor should they. The debt to IRS that's payroll related existed for this taxpayer from 2013 to 2015. They never paid it. They kept on accruing it and paid it in 2025. Would that interest penalties be abatable under these court cases?
Absolute difference of agreement. All right. We anticipate that the government is going to say that there is no relief there because it was a pre-existing penalty. We have done the aggressive computation says everything was, any payment obligation was suspended during that time so that we get no interest suspension during that period of time. Now, if it's from 2013 and 2015, by the time you get to 2020, the failure to pay penalty has already been fully maxed out. But if it was a new assessment and it was something in the suspension period, yeah, there could be even a failure to pay penalty could be theoretically abated under the plain language of the statute.
Okay, next question. Can we ask for the most aggressive and then the IRS grant a conservative position?
You can ask.
You can ask for anything, Heather.
Look, you can ask. The guardrail is 6676, right? You know, is it a reasonable position that we're taking? In cases settled, I anticipate that there's going to be a settlement program. So if you can justify the aggressive position, then it's a position that you take. Taxpayer Bill of Rights says you have the right to pay only the correct tax. I think that, again, we're tax professionals. We know what a reasonable basis is. We've disclosed the reasonable basis. We've taken some very aggressive positions on filings so far.
I need clarification on the part that if we submit these refund requests, they can get denied. Does that mean they will issue refunds? And since the lawsuit is ongoing, they could deny after July 10th. And now the taxpayers will have interest and penalties and have to pay it all back.
Okay. They could deny it and say no refund. They could issue the refund and then go back to you for an erroneous refund the way they did with ERC. Different statutes, different work streams.
Is there room within the ruling, to extend the RSED for tax returns where refunds are due? I'm thinking a 29 return being filed and the IRS barring the refund due to the RSED, but the COVID-19 disaster extended it.
I can't answer that right now. I mean, I've seen the cases that are out there, but I don't have an opinion.
What would it be frivolous to file at this time to file a claim?
It talks about tax. It doesn't talk about extending or adjusting statute of limitations, right? It's that the tax is suspended. It doesn't talk about the
Filing a return.
filing a return in this section of 7508. There is an argument about extension of time for returns but it's not in this section, but there's some cases on that.
What about taxpayers who have audit adjustments from 19 to 22? Can we ask for penalty and interest abatement?
Adjustments.
I didn't know we were auditing during that period of time.
Statute. Audit adjust. If they were assessed because of that period, then they're part of the qualified period. If they're assessed after that period, that statute should be gone by now.
Got it. Okay, next. What's up? Did the IRS start refunding some of these penalties and interest? I thought some were automatically refunded already, but I might be mistaken.
No, you're right. They refunded 1 year. They were taking the position originally that 7508A was capped at 1 year of interest. So a lot of people got 1 year.
Is that the money we received during that 1 year, that 19 and 20, where they didn't charge penalties and automatically reversed them?
Yeah.
Okay. Next up.
Those are going to be your 161 codes.
Next one, what's it? Because that's a half thought. Wait. So FOIA requests is not needed if we're pulling transcripts.
FOIA request, if you have no other issues, right? FOIA requests, we look for a 6751B issue, right? Did they execute that? If you're going based on a pure Kwong claim, what was assessed and interest accrued, then no, you don't need the FOIA. But I'm saying when you do an 843, your due diligence requirement is that you ensure that there are no other claims that should be made during this period that you're going to waive. One claim per period.
I have two here. Do we expect the FOIA will get a result before July?
No.
No. Yes. Yeah. Wait. Hi. Thank you for your request. We need 90 additional days. Can you please ask this question of Frank? Is this applicable? Corporation returns were filed prior to 2019. Tax liability was paid. Subsequently, the return is examined, and assessment additions to tax occurred during 2021.
That's a maybe.
Right.
That's really aggressive.
That's a maybe. Right? It's also a maybe because it existed prior.
It's really aggressive.
Another FOIA question. By the way, if anybody wants, we have a FOIA class on demand. We probably should just make available to everyone. Lisa, would you just make that free South Candela's FOIA class? Just make that available for free so they know how to do these things. Do we have to do the FOIA on every client? Or can you determine who needs abatement by viewing the account transcript? Doesn't it say right at the top, please file a...
Yeah, I mean, again, it depends on what you're doing. If you're doing it, you should know the client and what the issues were and what your level of due diligence is. I mean, some firms, okay, so what I've seen is some firms don't want to do the due diligence and they want to say, I don't want to do the FOIA. So they have engagement letters that say, we are only looking at this issue for this price. If you want us to do more than that, pay me.
So let me ask a question that someone hasn't asked yet. Under Circular 230, section 10.21, my obligation to tell people that there's something different on a return and ramifications of the failure to fix it. Do I have a potential legal issue? Like, in other words, do I need to tell everybody, hey, by the way, maybe you qualify and go out and look at it? I don't have to do it for free, but do I have to tell people?
I think so. I mean, we're going to do like a mass email. I mean, you got to try to make people aware of that the government stole $320 billion of their money.
That's a nice word.
Yes, John.
Uh,
And John asked a lot of questions.
Two separate questions. One is kind of easier. If we all call Congress and call the elected representatives, is there a chance they can say maybe this is too crazy and they're gonna change the law and say, no, let's just have it for 6 months or
They didn't do that. They changed it prospectively. They're not going to go change it retroactively. And with this Congress, I think they might like the idea of just sending $320 billion back to people. They like sending money back. Who cares about the deficit? I mean, let's just pay people.
Without,
You know when I would love to do it? Like in October. Maybe everybody is going to get a big refund in October. We all call our congressman.
Frank, you once made a comment that only 5% of people take advantage of
CDP.
their CDP, their due process rights.
Yeah.
So what were to happen? The IRS is broken is an unfair word, but they're having decompression pains, right, from the reorganization and the loss of a third of their staff. What happens if they get 20 million of these forms?
Super AI.
They're paper. No. We already know what did Chuck say? That's their kryptonite.
Paper is their kryptonite.
What are they going to do? And I also know that from one of the Trump, there was an internal document from one of the closures, not the last one, the first Trump administration. They needed to do 20,000 more documents a year. How they were going to do that, they didn't know. If they processed 20,000 more paper documents a year, they would get caught up from the shutdown within a year. What if they get 20 million? This is going to be like Fresno with the nail trucks parked in the parking lot?
The IRS always finds a way. Everyone kept saying that the ERC claims were going to overwhelm the government, right? That there were 1 million ERC claims that were never acted upon. They're going to act upon them. We may not be happy with the way they act upon them. We may have to sue. There be class actions. Look, the class actions should get rid of a lot of cases, right? Because on these small cases, they're still going to create some law. AI, this is computational. This is where AI will excel once we know what the rules are in giving the refund or not. One of the things I believe is that the IRS is up to the challenge, right? And that they're up to the challenge. They'll figure out a way, even if the way is give us back our $300 billion and find another way to collect the tax. That's what the IRS does.
So the second question was about CDP. Actually, I feel like there wasn't enough discussion about raising this issue to CDP. We raised this issue to 7508A. When we raise it, it kind of just makes them free. We have cases where they just don't issue the notice of determination now for more than a year.
Yeah.
And so is it just, they just don't know what to do, or
No, okay. So
they keep saying we're reaching out to the team that deals with that?
that's right.
And then no response ever comes. And it's not bad because now they're not in collection. There's no notice.
That team took over time.
That's the answer we're getting right now. So the answer right now we've been getting for the last 6 months is we need to coordinate with the national office. The expiration date is coming. We're going to raise it. Eventually in CDP, they have to issue a notice of determination or they're not going to collect the money. So it can't stay there forever. On the other hand, we are in court right now for a CDP that has been pending for a decade.
1 year is not that bad.
So what is your
Right, your case, that they never issued the determination, right? You're still waiting for a determination, right? How many years is it?
We have one that's been 2 or 3 years since we filed the CDP. They never had a hearing. And then now there's another one where the last call I had, I think they got so flustered, they just stopped following up and no notice of determination. That's been 1 year.
So I mean, we're all going to have those, those stories, right? But this is being publicized enough, and there's enough money that I think that the tax professionals' involvement is going to change the ultimate result.
Irene Walkworth has a humorous comment.
Yes.
We don't know Irene. Can you submit your Form 843 via document upload tool?
Not yet. I hope so.
Yeah, we hope so. So for those 300 AI agents that the IRS has deployed, Agent 301. Document upload tool.
They would rather it, you think that, again, paper is their kryptonite. You think that they wouldn't rather having all of this stuff uploaded and be able to use Palantir to sort, process, and apply some metrics on what should be granted or not? You can't fax an 843. Whoever is going to start asking that question, don't say it.
That's the question, Ready? But you want to send all of these things certified mail, electronic return receipt requested, not priority mail, certified mail. Now, someone else asked, because it's not a listed service. Somebody else asked, and I didn't know if you want to talk about this, about what AI tools are safe and what are not. I mean, we can make one comment, which is, if it's the free tool, it's not safe for anything. I wouldn't even put my name in it.
And what do you mean by safe? Safe in that it's not going to disclose taxpayer information, or safe that it's going to make an error 50% of the time? Again,
You ever see the movie I, Robot? 3 laws safe, right? We want to know 7216 safe, Bradley Wiley safe. That's what they're asking.
so we joke about it. So right now,
Are you seeing Robot 7216 safe? Right, all right.
there's things called,
Don't decide AI.
these programs now are using what are called stress test protocols. The stress test protocol on ours walks computations through 6 different AI engines before it spits out the final. And then you can pull up and see what the different AIs did, and they came to different answers, and how, like, inside the bot, they reconciled to the answer they gave up giving you. All right, that costs a lot of money. But we're going to spend that money, because the alternative is every day I see a case about a lawyer or a judge or an IRS attorney who's getting a fine now because of the use of AI that hallucinates or not reliable. So my basic rule of thumb is don't cheap out on it. Instead of complaining about it, don't cheap out on it. Courts, by the way, you can put the filter, right, on the input side. So it should stress test the document as it's being filed and kick it back if it hallucinates and makes up things. So, the courts are kind of like doing a bait and switch. I think maybe they want to make money on these fines that they keep hitting these poor solo practitioners with.
Sullivan and Cromwell, that just came out a few days ago. They have to write a letter to the court apologizing for their AI.
There was an IRS case where it came up at a calendar call, that they used AI. The IRS just had to abandon an expert witness in a trial that his report was had AI. There's some judges in the judge's clerk, I would assume, in the Southwest, who issued an opinion with fake citations because the clerk used ChatGPT. All cheap AI programs. Every day there is something. And every day someone who hates AI sends me the document. And I'm going to tell them, it's like, if you've ever watched Star Trek, AI is like the Borg. Resistance is futile. It's taken over every part of our lives. So just like learn to coexist.
One important distinction, I think, that people at home, people in general don't get. The $20 a month LLM tools, large language model tools, are not what Accordance, what BlueJ, what some of the Frontier, some of these other things that are out there, that are the things that you're seeing deployed in major companies. They are not the toys
It's not the same.
we play with at home, right? So those things are substantially different and safer and less likely to hallucinate.
But nothing is 100%.
You would expect, though, that a professional who's going to use AI to represent people to teach something, that they would have some level of expertise as opposed to, winging it. And now
Right.
I'm not sure.
You're supposed to read it. You have to know what.
Right.
The more you use it, the better you are. And again, I when the year I graduated from law school, LexisNexis was issued, right, which is computer-based research. And I worked for a firm, and partners would say, "We don't trust that box. We want you to go to the shelves and pull out the cases and read it. We don't know who's inputting the stuff and the cases into the computers. They may be in a foreign country that they're doing that input. How do we know it's accurate? So don't use that Lexis and Nexus and Westlaw box." I think it was called Lexis at the time, was the first box, and I guess Westlaw was the second box. And they were vehement. Do not use them. And eventually they've taken over. I think that if you ask young kids who are graduating from law school today to go back to the big paper books or the old CCH binders or BNA on the pamphlets on the shelves, that they couldn't do it. And I think the same thing's going to happen, right? In law school now, everybody's got Harvey, and they have Google Notebook, and there's one other program. There's like 3 law programs that all of the kids are using in legal research. The next generation of kids won't even know how to use Westlaw and other services to look and read cases. Where do cases come from? How do you find them? What's the priority of cases? But look, it's a brand new world. There's tools. We have to learn to use the tools. Doesn't replace professional judgment, right? When we go into the courtroom, we're still telling our client's story. Why is our client entitled to this money? What were their hardships during COVID? And why is this the taxpayer that Congress was thinking about when they said somebody enduring a disaster should get a break from their government? We pay taxes most of the time. We turn square corners with the government, but every once in a while, maybe our government needs to think about our hardships and our challenges. And I think that this, COVID area law, this relief, may fit into that our government was just trying to do the right thing.
Okay, this one, I think you mentioned this pretty well, Frank. I'll just pop it up there in case. There's a question, do I need to file a claim for each year?
Yes.
Yeah, each year. And also each module. So if I have 4 941s in a given year, I need to file 4 and at 940.
Look, we spend more time fighting missteps with procedure than we actually do fighting substance. If the government wins a case by saying you didn't dot an I or cross a T, they still won the case.
For a statute of limitations, whoops. Maybe where'd you go there? For a statute of limitations for a claim for refund, I don't know why it keeps dropping. For statute of limitations for a claim for refund, is it only for a non-filer or also for amendments? So are all 19 to 22 amended claims for refund due July 16th, 2026? He just said that.
They were already been due by now.
Right.
Right? This extended what their due date would have been.
Right.
Right? 2022 was filed in 23. The 3 years was April 15th.
But it's not, we said this, it's not opening the RSET date.
It's not over, not that I believe.
Do we need 2 843s for each period? One for reasonable cause and another one for the Kwong claim? The answer to that, no. You just put the Kwong claim, protected language in it.
Each year, this case called Commissioner versus Sunan, each year is its own cause of action, right? Yeah, because when you look at your tax on a return, it's not just one box. It's you add up all the boxes together to get to the bottom tax. So you can't piecemeal play with the number on what the refund is going to be.
So there's only a few more we'll just if we're using one of these programs, do we still need the administrative files via FOIA?
Wait, I mean, one of the programs like Alyssa's program or Tax Now, probably not, but you're signing an agreement with them that they're not going to look at any issue other than the Kwong issue.
Right. statute of limitation, oh, we already answered that one. Some of these are the same stuff, they're popping up, parcel issues. Okay. Any feedback on penalties associated with individual 89, 86 BBA push-out adjustments for 19 to 22?
You know what? I think that they're gonna get covered. I mean, you know what? It's in the aggressive position, but it's an assessment. It's a payment due during that time. So for any of the push-outs that were done during that time, why wouldn't it apply? Actually, we're writing, you may see it by the barbecue, a BDA series of like all of these push out, what's in, what's out, what the statutes are.
What, if the debt was already paid, but there was P&I in that period, are they eligible to request it back?
That's the refund.
That's the point, yeah. Regarding the 6511 2-year payment rule, would it be the case that if you made a payment during the COVID emergency period, then the deadline is suspended until July 10th, 2023?
We've taken that position.
All right, yeah, so if you try to get a refund offset, okay. Why these just, I mean, the same questions, just.
I will, look, to the extent you guys send me the questions and I do an FAQ 5, I may just group the same questions together to answer them, but I'm going to try to answer anything that we haven't answered in these articles.
Okay. Hello, Karen. What if taxpayer previously received a first-time abatement penalties assessed during the COVID period? Can they now request removal of these penalties under 7508A and clean up the 3-year look-back period? I think that's a no, because the IRM says.
Who's going to do it? No.
Well, does the IRM say that if it's available, you must take it, the FTA?
Yeah, it's just a question of how is that piece of paper ever going to get processed on a claim for refund? Right? There's no refund.
Oh. If we submit an 843, it is not automatic. It is only available after all the court cases are closed and it's on the outcome of refunds are due. Then they will process and pay out the refunds or adjustment abatements. However, if after all of this and no settlement program, they just fall away. So we have to do this for a protected claim.
Oh, it's really sad. That's not right. He still got paid.
Right, yeah, by the way, we can't talk about money, but no one has suggested that you do this for free.
Remember in The Godfather, we're not communists.
It's not on the arm.
We can get paid.
It's not on the arm. I haven't denied anybody.
Unless I answer, for those of you, I do these free seminars to get you to volunteer to do work for people that are deserving. So don't take my comments like that not to do pro bono work, because I need you all to do more pro bono work. And the benefit of doing it first and going to the calendar calls and doing it for people for free is now you've got a skill set that you're going to bring back to your offices on that you've seen it in court, you see how it's coming out. And like I said, this was an issue yesterday in Alma. There were 6 cases, I would say, in at least 3 of the cases, there were 7508 Kappa A issues.
Little Mark Dombrowski from Hamburg, New York asks, what about civil penalties under 6672?
They're penalties, right? Under the aggressive position, they're penalties, right?
That's it. Melinda Tolbert, does it matter if they file the 2023 return late in 2025?
Maybe.
Yeah, another question on extending the statute for refund claim. You said no. This is an interesting one. I have a I have a client that had penalties assessed for tax year 2022, first on June 5th, 2023, then again on April 7th, 2025, again for 2022. Would they both be abated?
I think that if they're for that period and their failure to pay for that period, I don't know, I can't understand why a failure to pay penalty would be separated by 2 years. It may be, the second one may be part of an audit adjustment for that year. It should probably, they should probably get some interest suspension.
Confirm you would not file these abatement requests for someone that has eliminated their liability via OIC or bankruptcy.
That's right.
So, okay, so if a Form 1040 for 17 was due in 18 and is still unpaid, no penalty or interest abatement for the 2020 to 2023 period.
You're gonna get the benefit of the suspension, but that's, I mean, that's enough, right?
Client was on a payment plan dating back to 2017. Will they get an abatement if they file again for the period of
Yes.
the COVID period?
I believe that they're gonna give the interest suspension for the 1,268 days to people who were on payment agreements during that time.
Will this work if 2020 to 2025 returns were just filed in 2026?
For which return, I mean, for the ones that you may get some interest suspension for the period because there's been no interest accrued even during that time. But look, the day after interest starts running, failure to pay starts running.
Client paid the penalty more than 2 years ago, what abatements are still available? For example, they extended 2022 return filed August 15th, 23, made payment in November of 2023. Is there any chance for a refund? They don't mention if there's a penalty in there. Oh, they do. All right, it was paid 1 to 2 years ago.
But it was paid after the end of the suspension period.
Right.
Remember, that was the example 4 from the regulation.
Right. What do you expect the turnaround time to be when submitting a Form 843?
Any day.
We're in 2026, maybe 2031.
I was going to say in or after the current presidential
Oh, yeah.
administration. What are the percentage of approvals of Form 843 claims with the first attempt of Kwong? Not sure what that means. Nobody's filed them yet.
No, that they have actually.
Well, they haven't heard though. We heard
Some people,
responses.
no, right, remember, that's why we were encouraged. That's what you saw on the internet, that there was some people were getting it. And then we heard that what happened, they all stopped. And so there were some people, originally I think that there was an inclination to grant these small claims. But then once they started seeing these big ones, there's a perception that they need to study this. They do have to protect the fisc. As much as I want our $320 billion into the economy, I would expect that the good people at the Internal Revenue Service feel that there is some obligation to protect the fisc from, $320 billion raid.
Is there any indication the IRS is going to issue guidance on Kwong and Abdo cases?
Well, the guidance is going to be, do they appeal? Do they not? Do they acquiesce? Do they not? What position are they going to take in the next set of litigation?
This is a fee question, so I think we have to pass, but for the refund and claim fees, retainer plus for refund claim fees, retainer plus contingency, what would you consider a reasonable fee range? I'd rather we just discuss theory.
I mean, again, you can't charge what's called an unconscionable fee. All right. It depends on how much time and effort you put into it and the result that you get.
On the class action situation, would the $10,000 be per year or per taxpayer or per covered year?
Tucker Act is $10,000 per taxpayer.
It sounds like if we request the incorrect amount of abatement, it will be denied.
Okay, at least part of it.
The taxpayer owes for 17. Will the penalties and interest accrued during 19 through 2022 apply to the claim?
It's
How long will it take the IRS to reply to a FOIA request?
less than it did.
You know, you can submit these things online at foia.gov,
Yes,
foia.gov.
that's right.
Yeah, so that should speak.
They still print them out in paper.
That's correct. You do. And,
All it does is it saves the service center time. When you submit the FOIAs electronically, they print them, they still have to print them out.
and we've also found do see attached, an attached letter, because otherwise it's just that huge run-on sentence, and they call you up sometimes and say, I don't understand.
What's it mean?
Right, what are you looking for? By the way, Lissa has made that program available. If you go to the website and search FOIA, my website, taxpracticepro.com, type in FOIA class. The class is going up to 2 CE program at South Candela. First, it's free. Now it's free. So go ahead and watch that. You'll understand how to do a FOIA.
I put the link on the sticky note.
What if the line 2 amount is higher than the IRS's calculated amount? Will the IRS abate the amount they calculate, or will they just deny it?
I don't know yet.
You don't know yet. Dina works at a law firm, so it's probably critical for that. Do New York and California recognize the suspension period?
Said that, New York, we know does, not officially, but they do. California, I have no idea.
Estimated tax penalties, we said maybe.
Maybe,
Should be.
should be.
Could you explain what you mean when you say at once that even if you owed before COVID, anything that was assessed on it could be abated? But at the same time, you said the regulation only details post January 20th, 2020 penalties and interest.
Look, if you owed money prior to COVID, and you get a transcript, you're going to see that it's going to be interest or interest assessments or interest accruals during the qualified period. That theoretically, even though it relates to a year prior to the qualified period, the interest relates to the qualified period. And I think there's an argument that under 7508 AD2, right, that gets abated.
Andra in Las Vegas, can you clarify multi-year tax returns for a taxpayer in 2018 had large liability which he is still paying? Will the interest accrued during 2020 to 2023 apply to this? If a request is made by the client, will it restart the 10-year statute of limitations?
It doesn't restart the 10-year statute of limitations, and our position is that it doesn't apply.
So someone asks, was that a perplexity computer or a complexity computer? And what is that?
Perplexity Computer is one of the AI software programs out there. It's above, I think it's like $200 a month. It's not their low cost AI program.
It does an awful lot, and it does it a lot faster. We've answered all these FOIA questions. For conservation partnerships, do they have to make payments now, even if amounts not yet assessed to individual taxpayer in order to file the 843?
Conservation partnerships.
Yeah.
So you're probably talking about a partnership that invested in a conservation
Easement that's under exam.
that they're under exam. I don't even know. I mean, what are you going to? There isn't an assessment yet. So what are you looking to abate or refund? If
Right.
There's still an exam.
Well, because I know I'm going to get that. Mark asks, we can charge a percentage of savings on these claims, correct?
Yeah, there's no prohibition on the contingent fee on a refund claim.
It's a whole bunch of FOIA questions, which I think we don't need to be beaten up, but here's an interesting question. What could FOIA reveal that isn't on the transcripts?
A lot. That they blew a statute extension, that they didn't sign a 6751B memo. Just that they misapplied a payment that should have been applied to this period to another period. That they've lost the tax returns, that there were transcription errors. I mean, come on, that's why you do a FOIA. That's your FOIA. I'm sure Sal Candelo would have covered that, but that's why you do a FOIA.
All right. I read the first and the third part of your 3-part series today. I just read the fourth. I'm not able to get my hands on part 2 or some typos in here. I think part 2 or part 3 on how to fill out the Form 843, and we send that out. If you send us the most recent version, we can.
And I think people are selling it now on eBay. So if you go and you want the second article, that's the one with the prompt in it.
Right.
I think like if you go on eBay, it's about $100.
No, it's not. It's a real.
Because Frank won't like resend it.
Is that true? You're not resending it?
Of course.
What we'll do is we'll get that up into a Google Drive, and then when we send out the when we send out your certificates in a couple of days, we'll attach it in there, and you'll have it.
I think I made the mistake of uploading that on Sunday.
Yes, you broke the internet on Sunday. How do you join a class action suit?
You got to check. I mean, that's going to be an update. I was going to try to check before we get to this, if it's an opt-in or an opt-out. I just didn't have it. As much as I'm writing on this, this is not my life.
Oh, how do we access the TAC Google group and articles?
You join the group.
Right, you have to email Eric Chen.
You just email Eric Chen.
echen@agostinolaw.com, ECHEN@agostinolaw.com. That's Agostino, not the grocery store, D'Agostino. It's Agostino. All right. One of the consequences of doing the computations, penalty and interest incorrectly, as long as I identify the correct year and the correct penalty and interest.
You got to be competent. It's got to be reasonable. 6676, right? You can't just like say, oh, the machine screwed up. The TurboTax defense doesn't work. You're still signing it.
Do you have any thought? This is again a fee question. Do you have any thoughts on the amount of interest and penalties that would make this worth the fees we should charge?
So our biggest claim so far is $36 million. I think that was worth it because our fee wasn't even close to $36 million.
Well, Frank, let me just ask this. First, I think we have an obligation as professionals, whether you think Circular 230, 10.21 applies or not, you have an obligation to tell everybody that's your current client and everybody you did a return for during the effective period, hey, this exists. You can get your money back. Now, you're not doing it for free, you're not running a charity, but you have an obligation to tell them. To the extent you have, for some of our clients, we're going to look, I didn't do all 5 years. I have incomplete information, imperfect information. I'm going to tell them. I can't tell you if you qualify. I don't have all your information. And then if they call up or want to make an appointment, there'll be a fee. But, start with, you need to tell them that it should be free, and that should eliminate any possible litigation against you for failure to tell them that's out there. Because I just see that after this is all done. Did your tax guy forget to tell you? My goodness, you might be due compensation. And that's going to be interesting because if any of these claims get paid out, every one of these people that sues you is going to say, I would have won. Sorry. All right, so some of these are just repeats of the same thing that either folks weren't listening or we answered the question and they posed it at the same time. Calling July 10th the standard deadline seems inaccurate, or payment was made after that due date. Go on. For DIY filers who pay penalty and interest during the stated period, how do you think those filers will be served? Victims of fraud, probably. Just to be clear, the penalties must be assessed between 2020 and 2023. For example, if the 2023 return was filed and assessed in 26, then it would apply.
Depends on how you read that plain language. Right? If it suspends all tax.
Transcripts are only available for 1040 clients. FOIA requests take six months. That's not true.
That's not true. Come
Transcripts are
on.
available for other people. How do we get in, FOIA takes 6 months. How do we get information timely to meet the deadline for 1120 clients?
Ken, you get the client's file, you get all the communications from clients, you get the transcripts of the account. I mean, you reconstruct what was done. I mean, if they owe money for this period, that means they were getting letters.
Someone asks if you get penalties and interest abated on unpaid balances.
Yes, that's called abatement, as opposed to refund.
Who signs the 843, the preparer or the taxpayer?
Both of you,
Yeah, both.
it's a return.
We're taking a couple seconds here because a lot of this stuff is.
And it's almost espresso time.
Well, actually, I put in a question that I wrote. I wrote new questions after this, so I'm going to ignore everything after that. What is the last? So the last one is, what is CCH tax program? Stress test Kwong related forms. If using with tax help software, would these still need to be submitted through comparative AI steps?
I haven't used CCH to do computations, so it may, I list what I've tested, but when I wrote the first or second article, people started sending me their software and asking me to test it. Does it work? The ones I've tested and I put on these articles. Anybody, look, we're actually gonna have a barbecue, right? June 24th, 2026. Included at the barbecue is a technology panel. Anybody who wants us to test their software at the barbecue and want to show people what you've done, you're free to email me, and nobody gets charged. If you've got a good product and it helps the tax community, I want you to sell it.
So that's it. So we're done with time. We've got to go over to the other. Those of you at home, join us 6 o'clock tonight if you'd like for criminal.
Introduction to Criminal Tax, Part 1, for
Yeah.
people taking the exam.
So that's from 6 to 9 tonight. Same thing, 3 IRS, 3 NASDA, 3 Texas, 3 New York and New Jersey CLE. You're an attorney. So join us then, all right? Thanks,
Thank you,
Lisa.
Thank you all. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, John.
Thank
And
you.
Practice Pro.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Agostino. Thank you,
Audience who
John.
came in. Now we're gonna eat flan.
We don't have fun.
We don't have flan?
No.
You still have
Too much.
320 on there right now.
They're idiots. The first hour and a half, I think I told them everything. You gotta play with the prompt.